Welcome to the Human First podcast budget special, backed by popular demand. Is my colleague Neil Law, the Director of Financial Planning at Murphy Wealth, and we are here 24 hours pretty much after Rachel Reeves stood at the dispatch box to discuss what happened. I was wondering if we skip over our previous predictions that we made a couple of weeks ago.
Interesting.
Should we address that?
Well, 2 points on that. Interestingly, we're back 24 hours after Rachel Reeves stood up, but 25 hours after the OBR published it.
That's true. That's right. If we'd done our podcast in between times, how smart would we have looked?
Absolutely. Certainly better than the predictions that we made.
Very true.
However, I think I did call Scotland 4-2 and McTominay getting the first.
You did with an overhead kick.
I think I did. But that was a better prediction than some of the budget ones, I would have to say.
Yeah. Okay, so I think first and foremost, it's important for us to say that, it delivered few surprises. We knew there was going to be tax rises. People shouldn't panic, definitely pause. And look, ultimately, the rules have changed. We now know what they are, and that means we can start planning accordingly. So why don't we get into it a wee bit? Let's start with business owners. There was quite a lot in there for business owners to pay attention to.
There wasn't a lot that would make them happy. No, it wasn't a lot that would make them happy.
No, I can definitely relate.
So I think one directly apply for them, as you know, most business owners will pay themselves a small salary and draw the rest of their income via dividends. Mm-hmm. So whereas income tax rates for employees have not gone up, there's been a 2% rise on the starting and higher rate for dividend tax. The additional rate, the higher rate, hasn't gone up. So again, that's once again business owners bearing the brunt of tax rises. Yep. So when you couple that to last year's national insurance rise, corporation tax going from 19, 20, 25 to 25%, and also the one that actually came out probably a couple of hours after after Rachel Reeves sat down, that there's been a growing trend in certain industries where business owners will sell their business basically to the employees, give the employees certainty and surety, and allowing them to take the business forward, which has been great for maybe management teams that couldn't raise the capital, and that's a way of doing it. Basically, the tax benefit that was there for the business owner to do that has been halved. Yeah. So that was one. There was lots of predictions about tax rises, but that came from nowhere.
It did. Yeah. Which, it's not. There's still a risk attached with the these EOT relief schemes, and now there's half of the benefit, so it's not. It's probably not ideal.
I think also when you factor in that was a cliff edge that changed yesterday.
Yeah, it did change. Yes, that's right. So if you're in a mid deal,
somebody might be thinking 30th of November. That's it. That's the day I transfer my ownership, the ownership of my business to my employees. They're having to do a whole lot of thinking today. Yeah, a whole lot of thinking today.
Yeah. It's one of those ones that maybe doesn't catch the headlines, but it's quite a dramatic change. Okay, so financial planning, right? There's lots of stuff in the budget, the usual stuff that affects absolutely everybody. But obviously our job here is thinking about how it might affect those when they're thinking about their financial planning, because that's what we do. So let's start. Let's go to the pension piece. Sure. Right, pensions, and the one that we kind of knew about was salary sacrifice.
Yeah, that was pretty well trailed. So the change is now, it's been very common over the years for people to say to their employer, right, instead of paying me that, can you actually just put that into my pension? Mm-hmm. So if you're on the cusp of a tax band, if you're maybe just into higher rate, maybe just pay me up to the higher rate band and pay the rest into my pension. Yep. If you're at the point of 100,000, when you go above that, you start to lose your personal allowance. It's been very, very common for them to do that. Yeah. That's now been capped. So anything above £2,000, if you sacrifice your salary more than £2,000, you will still be liable to pay national insurance on the bit that you are sacrificing.
Yep.
But for the business owner, they will also pay national insurance on that. So commonly that would be 2% for the employee, but it's 15.8% for the business owner.
Yep.
So that's once again a modest rise for the individual,
Yep.
but a fairly colossal rise or cost to the business.
Yeah.
So that one was well trailed. It was a little bit, is it just going to be employees, but it looks like it's both.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we should say, pensions remain still the most tax efficient
Absolutely.
vehicle to save for your retirement.
Absolutely. And as the host, we always say, please don't listen to the noise.
Yeah.
But there is absolute nonsense being talked about there. Oh, that's the end of pensions. That's pension dead.
I saw a couple of emails about that today.
Yeah, absolute nonsense. The most tax efficient investment you can have is to put money in your pension.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, just remember that when you're reading all the headlines.
Absolutely.
Basically, that's really important. There was, again, ISAs had been trailed. I think we might have talked about that and maybe got that kind of right.
We might have got that one wrong. Might have that one right, rather. So cash ISA limit's £20,000 at the moment. That's been cut to £12,000. That only applies if you're under the age of 65.
Yep.
If you're over the age of 65, you can still retain, you still get the 20,000 allowance, and that can be fully invested in cash. Actually, I think that's quite a positive move.
Yes.
We talk to clients a lot about maintaining a cash buffer, an emergency fund, contingency fund, rainy day money, call it whatever you like. And cash ISAs are ideal for that kind of thing. But are they there as a long-term investment?
No.
Well, no is the answer. Because what you'll have is you'll have an interest rate that at best will keep pace with inflation, frequently below that.
Yes, exactly.
So you've actually got an asset that's devaluing. People with hundreds of thousands of pounds in cash ISAs, they do nothing for the economy. It's doing nothing for society.
No.
Money invested in investment ISAs where there's money going into businesses, that's a better long-term investment. It's better for the economy as well. So I think that's a fairly progressive move that I think most folk would have. Most folk in our industry certainly.
It's one we would be in favour of. Ultimately, as you say, cash is for safety, investing's for growth. Maybe there in the UK we do have there is a tendency towards cash instead of investing, and there is a broader piece around education.
Yeah,
that's fundamentally the problem.
Absolutely. I mean, I worked in banking for better part of 20 years, and people are so attached to what was in those days their wee blue passbook, and if people could still have that, then that's what they would want their money to be, and that's simply an education piece. And I think we're getting better at it, but there's still a long way to go.
There's definitely more access to investment solutions that perhaps lead you, kind of hold you by the hand.
Yeah, indeed.
So, we can. I think we're largely in favour of that one.
Yeah, I think so.
And this one we have to be careful. The difference here in England and Scotland is the mansion tax, which was trailed and then felt like it wasn't going to happen, but now is.
Yes,
or at least it is at some point.
It's an interesting one. I mean, we're sitting in Glasgow, so I think we can get away with calling it a mansion tax. If we were maybe sitting in a studio in London, we'd probably call it the small semi round the corner tax.
Yes.
So anybody owning a property valued over £2 million will start at £2 million. It's a £2,500 additional surcharge on their council tax, and that steps up in stages to properties at £5 million above when it's £7,500 a year. What wasn't announced yesterday is how they're going to value properties.
Good point.
So that all has to come out in the wash. Well, indeed. So what if you spent? What if you bought a property for £1 million and you've spent £1 million on it?
It's at £2 million.
What's that? So is it going to be done postcode by postcode? Is it property by property? So there's a lot to come out in the wash on that one.
Be a very costly exercise.
Absolutely. So it's a few years out before it comes.
That's 29.
28. So there's a few years out before that one comes into force. So it'll be really interesting to see how they're going to go about administering that. So the interesting bit is what are they going to do with valuations. there and here, are we going to follow suit?
In Scotland, yes.
In Scotland. Now, we'll find that out with the Scottish budget.
Presumably not at 2 million.
Well, if it is at 2 million, I don't think it's going to raise a lot of money.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it's going to raise a lot of money, but will the Scottish Government just follow suit and introduce something here? There's been talk of rebanding houses and revaluing houses because we're at the same valuations we've had since 1991. So are we due to do something different? So it'll be really interesting to see how that all comes through.
Something slightly more esoteric that a lot of people might not be familiar with, but certainly something that's we're very familiar with working with our clients is VCTs and EISs. So venture capital trusts, enterprise investment schemes. Wee bit of change on the relief, and this one totally came out of left field, didn't it?
It did, and this is one that when the Labour Party came to power, they published that kind of white paper saying that esoteric investments, venture capital, EIS, that was it. It was locked down for 10 years.
The patient capital review ran to 2034, I think.
Yeah. So we certainly didn't foresee this. Wasn't speculated on.
No.
So the way these investments work, these investments will primarily go into new start companies.
Smaller companies.
Yeah, there's no...
grassroots economies, we'd like to say.
Indeed.
Yes.
I mean, there isn't money in the public purse to fund that, so it's easier to offer investors a tax break to fund these startup businesses. So at the moment, as they stand, there's a 30% relief for money going into a venture capital trust and a 30% relief for money going into an enterprise investment scheme. As of April 2026, the next tax year, the tax relief for money going into a venture capital trust drops from 30 to 20%. It remains 30% in enterprise investment schemes. So there is a differentiation between the two that hasn't been there before.
It's fair to say that probably reflects the fact that generally EISs are much more venture in the traditional sense. The VCTs have become a bit more almost mainstream. They are listed.
We could get super technical.
We'll probably do a wee separate thing on VCTs and EIS, I think.
That's absolutely true. And I think over the last few years, the changes that have been made, legislation and various things, EISs are now more aggressive, more adventurous,
risky, if you want to.
Whereas venture capital, because it's a fund and doesn't have to hold all its assets in exactly the same way, then there has been a little bit
almost manufacturing of
There is. And also there's a little bit about, the return from an enterprise investment scheme is your exit. It's what you sell it out from a venture capital trust. You receive dividends.
That's right.
And
Tax-free.
They're tax-free. So it's a slight change, probably. On reflection, I think when I saw it, I was like, oh God, I wasn't expecting that. But on reflection, it's probably fair. There's a differentiation between the two, just based on the level of risk that somebody has to take. Again, this is one that's very, very similar to the pensions. Because for years now, when we had lifetime allowance, people who'd maxed out their pensions, for people who were high earners and couldn't contribute to their pensions, VCTs have been the default alternative.
The next vehicle in the chain.
Again, in exactly the same way, we've got people saying pensions are dead. We've got also people saying VCTs are dead. Absolutely no. Pensions, as we've said already, are the most tax efficient vehicle out there. But venture capital trusts still remain super tax efficient, and for the right client in the right set of circumstances, they're not for everybody. Post 2026.
Yes, because this comes in. This is the last tax year you'll get 30% relief in investing in a VCT. So not worth suggesting to anyone rushing to do that.
No,
but certainly speak to your financial planner.
Absolutely, and for the right client and the right set of circumstances,
exactly.
They're fantastic, fantastic investments.
Do we think so? There's not. We touched on it, but there's nothing really from a separate Scottish budget aspect for those listening and watching from Scotland. The only because dividend tax applies across the UK, it's not devolved income taxes. So really, it's that property thing, isn't it? That's we'll wait till January. We'll probably come back and have a discussion about that.
We'll make our predictions for that one and see if we're any better at that.
And I guess what's the kind of main takeaway here for people? I mean, a lot of these changes aren't going to take effect for years. That's one of the things that came out.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I mean, just going back to the pension one, because we kind of skip past that. And the salary sacrifice change doesn't actually come in until April 2029.
Yeah.
So we've got additional three tax years from now where, you know, the rules don't change.
Yeah.
The rules don't change, and it's a very, very appropriate way to having taken appropriate advice to make sure it's the right thing for you to do. It's very, very appropriate that people consider using this as a vehicle to control their tax point and various other things like that. You know, people will also use salary sacrifice to avoid the child benefit additional tax charge because they can control their income, so therefore they don't have to repay child benefit. All of that's still at play. That's still at play. So we've still got 3 years where the rules don't change. Probably the biggest tax imposition of the budget is all the bans been frozen. So all the bans are now
probably touch on that.
From now till 2031. By which point they will have been frozen for 10 years.
So since 2021, was it?
Yeah. So 10 years. So, I mean, if the personal allowance has been frozen, the rates that the levels...
This is the point at which you start being taxed.
You start being taxed, you go into higher rate tax, you go into, the 6 bands will go in Scotland, the 3 in England, just to make things more complicated. So... Think of we're not talking thousands, we're talking the millions of people who were non-taxpayers who will now pay basic rate tax, who were basic rate tax payers who will now pay higher rate taxpayers will pay additional rate, advanced rates, and everything along those lines. These are massive, massive tax rises. And
not in name, I guess. It's stealth tax, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's these... It's the kind of creeping, it's the creep of that. That again, I suppose it comes back to the point we were talking about earlier about the pressure it puts on businesses.
Yeah.
Because people, if they're earning the same, will actually see their, if it's just inflationary rises, they're going to see their take-home pay go down and the buying power is going to go down. Now, they'll not look to the Treasury for that. They're going to look their employer in the eye and say, well, come on. Again, it's a pressure on business owners who will be expected to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
So it's almost passing the buck a little bit.
I'm wondering, should we? I mean, we are kind of, I guess, already opining on. This is not a budget for growth, right? And this is a big thing we keep hearing. And we're not. We don't want to be political because we've heard it, in successive governments. Yep. I'm yet to see anything that promotes growth in the economy at all.
I think that's absolutely fair. And again, we're not being political in this, but you look at all the measures, you look at all the forecasts that were out before the budget was. We've actually downgraded the country's prospects for growth.
Yeah.
We've downgraded the productivity that we think we're going to get from the country.
Yep.
So the concern for me, and this is what we have to really, really guard against, is that we're going to have, and you're already seeing it in the media, you've got people coming out saying they'll be back again, we're going to have another budget that raises taxes in a year's time. Yeah. So the knock-on impact of that is, we spoke about it the last time, is people have basically said, well, if I don't need to do something, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. Which is just that ever-decreasing circle.
Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy then, isn't it?
100%. So we've had a budget, it could have been worse, let's be honest about it. It could have been worse. The black hole, call it what you will, wasn't as big as was being predicted at times. But we've had the tax rises. Everybody's going to be paying more. Everybody's going to be worse off. But where's the light at the end of the tunnel? Where's the bit that's going to make everybody go, well, okay, I'll take the pain because it's going to. There's going to be better.
Because at the end of the day, the tax rises and the additional revenue, if indeed it actually ever comes to pass, it's just going to pay off interest on the national debt. It's not going towards the NHS, the roads, to anything else, which is, I guess, the kind of really frustrating bit. So that's the negative view, right? What's a more positive outlook would be, okay, look, it's happened. We now know what we need to do, and I think I've said this before on speaking to other guests as well. You can't rely on the government. If you're relying on the government to help you in your business, you can forget about it. So now you just need to go, okay, this is what we're dealing with. So how are we going to adapt either our business or financial plan to make sure that it continues to be successful with this new set of rules? That's
absolutely right. I guess everybody's got a choice to make. We can all, stamp our feet, kick our heels, and go, everything's terrible. It's my ball, I'm going home. Yeah. We can all do that, and where does that get us?
Nowhere.
This is the cards we've been dealt. We can do that, or we can go, do you know what? I'm going to take control of my own circumstances. I'm going to take control of my own business. I'm going to take control of my own life. These are the changes? Fine. Does this dramatically impact me? Does this change my outlook? Now, the answer is, for 99.9% of the people out there, this is going to have such a limited impact on their future. They're not going to notice it unless they allow this to change their behaviour.
Unless you focus on it.
Yeah. If you take control of your own destiny, your own finances, your own future, with the support of the professional planners that you're going to need along the way, then there might be adaptations to your financial plan you need to make. There might be things you need to do differently. There might be things you need to view from a different angle. But your future's not going to be changed by this. No. So for me, okay, we can't change what's in the budget. We can only change how we react to it. Don't, for whatever you do, listen to the nonsense.
Yes.
The pensions are dead nonsense. The VCTs are over. No, please no. Yeah. There are still wonderful financial planning opportunities out there that are going to lead to wonderful outcomes for clients to go and live sensational lives. Yeah. They may just have to tweak them. Yeah. And that's all that's happened here.
One of the other things that came out as well, which again feels counterproductive, but there's the changes to the charging on EV cars.
Yes, it's an interesting one. I think you and I should be, based on the cars you and I drive, we should be very careful about what we say here. Yes, so from 2028, drivers of fully electric cars will be paying 3p a mile to drive the car. Yeah. For plug-in hybrids, it's 1.5p per mile. And this is to replace the fuel duty that is charged through petrol.
Yes, of course.
Petrol and diesel. We're in a world where everybody's being asked to transition from combustion engines to electric vehicles, so it seems almost somewhat counterintuitive.
It certainly is.
Because when you look at the figures for sales of fully electric cars, if you take out the fleet stuff where there's a tax advantage of doing it, there's a very, very small percentage of retail.
Private ownership's very expensive.
So we're now looking at that. So I mean, they say the average drivers, I think in the UK it's 8,000 miles a year, which would be £240 a year. In Scotland it's a wee bit higher, it's 12 because we've got a more rural economy, so it'd be £360 a year. Again, this is one they've not said how they're going to do it.
Oh yeah.
So it's suggested that this could be almost a kind of honesty box where you say, I think I'll drive 12,000 miles. Now,
who are you paying this to?
Well, you're paying this to central government. It's not, and so this money is not going. It's not going to.
It's not going to fix the roads.
No, the potholes will still be there. Everything.
Your really heavy EV cars definitely does your tyres.
So as cars get a bit older, I mean, it's very easy from like MOT to MOT. The mileage is recorded, and you can get a bill. You could get a bill. You can see how that would happen. But until such times as cars have these type of things, how are you going to run it? And this really has the feel of one of these schemes that could actually cost more to implement than they actually what they collect. So I think
it's a bit like the mansion tax.
Indeed,
it's got that kind of potential.
Yeah, I think these are all plans, but we're years out before them actually come into force. And will they all come into force in exactly the same way as they're shaped at this moment in time? Time will tell. Time will tell. This 3p thing, that I would be well, it's suitably sceptical as to whether or not that comes into force the way it looks at this moment in time, because it's how do you master it?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess what we want people to do, anyone listening here who is concerned, first of all, there's no reason to panic here.
None at all.
Unless you're in the middle of doing an
EOT.
and,
at which point you're probably not listening to us.
You're not listening to us. You're probably talking to your accountant,
right
your
now,
lawyer at this point, which is a real shame. But yeah, people should just sit back, just digest this. I mean, we haven't had a huge response yet from people, but I suspect as we communicate with them and maybe this comes out, we will get more of a response. But anyone listening, feel free to reach out. You can comment on YouTube or on the various social channels below. We're obviously more than happy to have a conversation about this. So listen, thank you again for joining me on the Human First podcast, Neil, and no doubt we'll be back to discuss other things a later date.
Thank you.
Cheers.